Hi and welcome to Serenity Cove Crafts. My name is Linda and I'm here today to teach you how to knit on a Sentro knitting machine. Now this is a circular knitting machine, which means that the pins or knitting needles are arranged in a circle and you're knitting in the round. That's what we're going to be doing. So at the end we will end up with a tube. So I'm going to teach you how to cast onto the machine, how to change colors midway through, how to cast off, and once you have a knitted tube cast off, I will teach you how to cinch the ends and tie them off and how to double your work. Now these are important things to know how to do. Even if you're learning how to make a beanie or a stuffed animal, you have to know how to do these basic things. So without further ado, why don't we get started? What you're going to need is two different colors of yarn. I'm going to be using this pink yarn. It's just a worsted acrylic yarn, and I'm using this teal. So what I'm going to do is just put the teal aside for right now. I will be casting on with the pink yarn. So you will notice that out of the 48 needles that you have here, they're all, 47 of them are pink. You have the one needle that is white. This, for me, is the starting needle. So this would be number 1. This is where I always start and I cast on. Now, in order to recognize it easily as it's coming around, I just basically took a Sharpie marker and I just marked off in front and behind of this pin, so that at a quick glance I can tell that it's coming around. So what we want to do to start off is just move your machine, move it over so that your pin is, it's just on this side of your yarn guide. Now this is your yarn guide. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave a bit of a tail. I'm just going to put it in the middle here. We're going to take the yarn, and what we're doing is we're casting on. So you need to make sure that the yarn goes under the first white key or white pin. And what we're going to do is we're going to be alternating. We're going to be in front and then behind, and then in front and then behind. So I'll just explain this here, show you what I mean. So the first pin here is in front. Now you'll see I've taken the yarn and I've moved it behind the second one. Okay, and as the third one comes, I've moved the yarn back in front so it catches underneath the front. So you're basically doing this S motion. You're going behind and in front, behind and in front. And don't worry about it. When you first learn how to do this, it can seem a little tricky and you might have the tendency of hanging on to your yarn with a death grip. You don't need to do that. Just have a nice loose hold on your yarn. We're just going to cast on nice and loose. All right. Just make sure that you go behind and then in front while you're cranking the lever. So behind, in front, behind, in front. Now we just keep doing this until you get all the way back around to the first one. So the front, behind, the front and behind. All right. Just like so. Don't worry. It will seem like you're going painfully slow to begin with. And that's okay. We all have to learn. This is how we learn. And in no time at all, you'll be casting on like a pro. You'll be flying through, picking up speed. It's just a little intimidating at first, right? So behind, in front, behind, in front. Now the last one before this white pin, you're always going to be behind. Okay, so now we're kind of stopping it right here. Now is the point where I take this yarn before I get to the next the white pin again. I take the yarn and I have to feed it into this yarn guide right here. Now, one thing that's very important is that you need to ensure that it goes right here. Let me just try to point with this. Right here into the guide. it's easy to accidentally put it like this, where it kind of slides over. Now, the problem with that is that once you start cranking, your needle isn't going to catch the yarn. And you may not realize it for a while, and then you're just going to wonder, like, what's going on here? So I'm just going to go back right here. Okay. So we're just going to take this yarn and put it, sorry, I'm trying not to get my hands in the way. Just make sure that it goes into the yarn guide like so. Okay. And this is the point where you would select your tension. This is the tension bar. This would be tighter. The center one is medium, and then it's a looser on the end. So I usually try to keep it at medium. Okay. And you want to ensure that you have quite a bit of slack on your yarn, right? And you'll need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle for cutting and threading the yarn. Now we're ready to start knitting. At this point, you would set your counter to 0 if you have one that works. If you don't have one that works, unfortunately, you'll have to manually count. But we're not worrying about that today. Today we're just learning how to cast on. Okay? At this point, you will notice that we'll go slow to begin with. You should always go slow on your first couple of rows. Now you ensure that the yarn goes underneath each and every needle. It's important to go slow for your first couple of rounds, just to ensure that the needles are catching. It's worth it to go slow to begin with, to ensure that you're getting a good start. Okay, so I've done one full round. So I'm just going to go continue. Okay, and I'm back at the beginning, so that's 2 rows. I just like to tug on this end piece here, you know, just to make sure it doesn't buckle up under there. Now we can start picking up speed. Just getting some more slack on my yarn here. All right, so just continue knitting like so. Now I'm not going to bore you while having me just having you watch me go round and round and round. I'm going to pause it at this point, and I will come back after I'm going to do 20 rows. Once I'm at 20 rows, I'm going to come back and show you how to change colors on the machine. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. I'm at 19 rows. So I'm cranking here, and I'm finishing off my 20th row. I'm waiting until this white pin gets backed over here to the front. At this point, I'm going to take a pair of scissors, just release the yarn from the tension guide. Now you don't have to cut a very long piece. I'm just going to cut right there. I'm going to take this piece that I've cut and just slide it after this pink pin, but before the white one. I'm just going to put it off into the middle. Now I'm going to take my new color, in my case it's teal, and I'm going to insert it in the exact same location. There again, you want to ensure that the yarn goes into the yarn feeder, right? So we'll put it back into the tension guide. Try to do this here. Now what I do is I hold on to the ends for a little bit, just to get a little bit of tension here. And now you just need to ensure that your new color is going underneath the white pin and then the following ones as well. Now, when I get to about here, I like to tie off my ends pretty much right away. Some people wait until they've gone a few rounds. Some wait until the end of the project, but I like to do it now so I don't forget. So I'm going to double tie it into a knot. All right, now I'm just going to ensure that this is back in the middle. Okay. Now I'm just pulling some slack here on my teal yarn. What we're doing now is we are changing the colors. So we're going around here, ensuring that the yarn is going under all the needles. And we've just done one row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit 10 rows in this teal, and I'll be right back to show you how to just change a color back. All right, I'm on my 29th row, and I'm waiting for this white pin that I have indicated with black here to come back around. And right before we get to that one, in between the two pins, we just stop. So that is my 30th row. There again, we're going to do what we did before. We're just going to release the yarn from the yarn guide, snip the yarn, just put that aside, and I'm going to go back to the pink. Now just take the teal, put it into the middle like we did before, between the pink and the white pin. And we're going to do the same with the pink yarn. I'm going to put it into the tension guide, and we're just going to hold on to this while we start cranking. Okay, you just ensure that your new color is going underneath the needles. And I'm going to tie it off again so that I don't forget. All right, so I'm going to knit another 20 rows in this pink, and I will come back in about 10 rows. I want to show you how to just change off your yarn. Let's say you run out of yarn and you have to change balls. I'll show you how to do that. So I'll be back in about 10 rows. All right, I'm back. So far I'm at a total of almost 40 rows. And I wanted to show you how to change your yarn out. Now, one thing that's important to know is that when you're changing colors, and I should have told you this to begin with, always change colors in the same spot. So you want to change it when you're at the point here where you're between the pink and the white pin, to the right of the white pin. But when you are changing your yarn, okay, let's say I've come across right now a knot that I can't work through. Okay, if you're changing it and you're going to change the yarn and stay with the same color, you can do it anywhere. You don't have to wait until you're back around over here. So let's say, oh goodness, I ran out of yarn here. What's a person to do? Well, I'll show you. You want to take your yarn, get in between two pins. It doesn't matter. Could be like any of the two. If it's a coincidence and you do land over here, then that's great. You'll line up with everything else. But you're just going to do it the exact same way. We're going to put the pink yarn into the middle, and I'm keeping the same color. So, but you're doing the exact same thing as you would when you are changing colors. Okay? So I'm just going to go under here like this. So the important thing to know is when you're changing colors, to do it at the same spot. When you're keeping the same color, but you're just tying it to another piece because of a knot, or somehow you're working with a couple of different balls, then you can do it anywhere. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to tie it off here. All right. And it's the exact same thing. So I'll come back in 10 more rows and show you how to cast off. Okay, so I'm finishing up my 49th row. So I'm waiting for my white pin, which is over here, to make it back around to the front. Okay. All right. Now here we are again. We're in between the pink needle and the white one. Now to cast off, you want to leave yourself a decent amount of tail. You don't want it to be too long, because then when you're casting off, you can get it tangled around the handle, or, oh goodness, caught in pins, caught in your scissors. So we're just going to go ahead like this, and I'm just going to thread the yarn needle. All right, so to get ready to cast off, I'm going to pull my yarn out of the yarn guide here, and I'm just going to put the needle and yarn into the middle. That way it's out of my hands, I'm not going to get it tangled. And what we want to do is we need to crank one more full round, and what that does is it releases the stitches so that you can start picking them off. We're not going to come all the way to this exact point. We're going to stop the white pin around here. Okay, so you just make sure that your yarn that you have in the middle just kind of goes under that, excuse me, that last pink pin. And we're cranking without yarn in there. And you see what it's doing is it's releasing these stitches so we can cast off. So we are right here now. And we want to stop it right about here so that the stitches don't pop off on us. This point, you're going to want to take your needle that's threaded, okay? And we are going to start, let's see if I can move this over here. We're going to start at the white pin right here. And we're just going in with the needle that's threaded, and we're picking this first stitch off. Now, you may notice that I put my finger on the stitch that's directly facing me. It's to the left of it. So it's right next to it. I just do this so that I don't accidentally drop the stitches. Now what can happen is if you tug a little too hard, this stitch can pop off, which can make this one pop off, and it's a whole domino effect. And that's an entirely different lesson, to learn how to try to put your stitches back on. So by putting your finger on top of it until you're ready to pick it off, move your finger to the next one. That ensures that you're not going to drop your stitches. Now, some people, you'll see me continuing like this. Now, some people like to, just kind of crank with the handle like this. Personally, I go here. Personally, I don't crank with the handle like that because I find that pretty much need 3 hands to do that. So what I like to do, see, just pick, move, big finger. I like to move the carriage. Now the carriage is this pink tray here that rotates. So you can just actually easily slide it like so. You'll see the handle turn over here. Okay? And I just find it's easier. That way I'm not having to let go and grab the handle every time. So we just continue like so. And moving the carriage, picking those stitches off. At first you can maybe only get 1 stitch at a time. And then once there's enough slack created like this, then you're able to pick a few more. All right? And we're just going to keep going all the way around until we get back to the beginning. Now, when I'm doing this, when I'm casting off, I usually stand up so that I'm looking over the machine. It's just easier on my shoulders that way. I kind of have rotator cuff tears in my shoulders, and I find that it's easier on them when I stand up and do this. But just for the purpose of this video, I'm just sitting down to show you, right? I'm going to shut up for a second, give you a little bit of silence. All right, so when we get to the last one, it's the exact same thing. You just take it off. Now you've cast off and you've released your knitting from the machine. So I'm just going to take this machine and move it out of the way for the next part. All right, and once we have the machine out of the way, okay, your knitting is off of the machine. So what we want to do is we want to give it a nice good stretch. We're not playing tug of war. We're not going to go crazy here. We just want to give it a good stretch in all directions. There we go. Now, you can see here, everything looks nice and even. There will be a part of your knitting here where we've changed colors, where you will, I don't know if you can see this, you can see that it kind of is a little out of alignment a bit. So you always want that part to be on the inside of your work or on the back of it. For example, if you're making a stuffed animal, you'd have that on the back of the stuffed animal, not on its tummy. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to take my scissors. I'm just going to snip these down where I did the color and the yarn changes. All right, here we go. That's the last one. Now, I never throw these out. I just keep them, and, you know, for the purpose of recycling, I actually use the yarn pieces in my future projects. So, for example, if I'm stuffing an animal, I will add this to the stuffing. This way, my project, every knitting project lives on in something else. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're left with this tube. Now the next thing we want to do is close the ends of the tube. Now this is called cinching. All right, we're going to take one end and just gently pull this yarn tail so that you see it's like a drawstring. It's closing. Right. Now, just to make it a little bit more manageable, I'm just going to cut this down a little bit. Now, there are a couple of ways to cinch and tie off your work. What I like to do, and this is the way that I learned how to do it, especially since I like making stuffed animals and children can be playing and a little rough with their toys, I like to do it this way so that it reinforces the stitches and it's more secure. It's a stronger closure. Okay, so what I do is just look in here and you can see all the stitches in that last row. Okay, so what we're going to do, just go to the very first one, pick it up, and we're going to be picking up all of these stitches with your yarn threaded in the needle, and we're just going to go along our merry way here, just feeding the yarn through these stitches, and that's going to give us this double layer of security. And I tend to do it with the hats as well, excuse me, with the beanies. I live here in Canada, and it can get quite cold, so we can be a little tough and a little rough and tumble with our beanies. Or actually, we call them toques up here. But a toque is a beanie, and yes, so I do like to ensure that I'm securing my pieces. Okay, and we just keep going around. Now you'll notice when you get back to where you started, here, all of a sudden you can see that, look, the yarn is doubled. So we've come right all the way around back to the front. All the way around back. Well, I don't know. That doesn't sound like very good English, does it? Okay, so we're going to pull this tight. Now, at this point, what I like to do is we're going to tie it off. So this is cinching. I've just cinched one end. Okay. I'm going to tie it off. I'm going to take the needle and insert it on the other side of the hole. Don't know how well you can see that. And go all the way through to this side. And then I like to loop my yarn around the needle and just kind of hold on to it. And there we go. I've knotted it. Right? So now we're going to go to the other end. We're going to do the same thing to the other end. Now this second end is the one that we cast on with. This is a funny end because it tends to be a little stubborn and the end likes to curl out. So you do have to maneuver it a little bit. You'll try to get your stitches to kind of curl inwards. And I am going to do the same thing. I'm just going to shorten this a bit so it doesn't get tangled up in everything. Okay, rethread the needle. All right. And here we go. We're doing the same thing. We're grabbing these stitches. And I know when you're first learning, goodness gracious, it can seem a little intimidating and overwhelming, but it's okay. You know, we all start somewhere. We all begin not knowing how to do anything. Just a little fact about me, about myself, is I don't know how to knit by hand, to crochet, or to hand sew. So I had to be quite creative learning how to, you know, work with yarn and needles. I mean, this is all foreign to me. And as far as the crochet hook goes, if I can learn how to do something without using a crochet hook, I'm all in. Count me in for that. I just don't understand a crochet hook. My mind cannot wrap around it. I just cannot figure out how to make one work. And I've had excellent teachers try to teach me how to crochet, but it's not something that I am able to grasp. But that's okay. I've found something else that I'm passionate about. And once you get going, there's no end to the possibilities. I mean, you can make sweaters, blankets, Afghans. I mean, it's amazing what you can make. Okay, so I'm starting to get towards the end, and there we are. Okay, so I am over to back over here where we started. Okay, so I'm going to tighten this, and I'm going to tie it off. So when a pattern tells you to cinch and tie off your ends, this is what it means. Some people do it another way. They fold it into itself first. I do it this way. Okay, and then I just cut this down a little more. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double the work. Now that's terminology that you'll hear as well. They'll say double your work. So basically I'm going to take this end that I cut down a little shorter. I'm going to fold it into the tube here. So I've kind of made a little hat. So I folded it into itself. Now I'm going to secure it. So I'm taking my yarn again on the outside, and I'm going in through this center hole. Right? And on the inside, make sure you get into the center hole there as well. Okay, you're going to pull this yarn through, take your needle off, and now we're going to tie this. I like to over tie. I tie 3 times usually, but that's just me. A little overkill. I'm telling you, when I put something together, it's not coming apart. And that's, I guess I was raised that way. You should see my mother with tape. Man, that woman can wrap things so nothing would ever come apart. Now, the last step that you would do is you're hiding your ends. You're going to hide the tail ends of the yarn. So we're threading both pieces onto the needle. We're going to kind of pinch the yarn here. We're going to insert the needle in between the two layers. So you'll see it's not going through this side. It's going in between. We're going to pull it through like so. We are going to cut, and there you go. So you've learned how to cast on, change colors, change yarn, cast off, cinch the ends, tie them to secure them, and double up your work. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's my very first one, so I don't have the flow of this yet. I promise I will get better, but it's been my pleasure spending this time with you. And I hope to see you again. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you again. Thank you.